Hello, welcome to another webinar series video that we've been doing over the last few months, well actually the last year, on products and services that we actually doing here at SMS, and also just some sort of knowledge-based exercises so you can actually see what sort of things you can do with the products and services we offer. Today we've got Lucy with us. She works in marketing. She's going to be going through this webinar on video conferencing like a pro. So let's get started. So SMS here at SMS. So basically, we are a hosting provider of email. We are a Microsoft 365 house. We basically sell Microsoft products and services, and we are here to help you with anything you have any issues with, whether you're a new customer or existing. We are here to help you through the whole process, so from start to finish, and we offer some obviously services for 365. We add-on services for that to help you strive within your business. So okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to do everything you need to know about video conferencing. So Lucy, what's the best way to go for finding it for a quiet place in a call when you make an actual call itself? How do you actually go about doing that?
Thanks, Martin. Hi, everyone. The first thing to do when joining a video call, or just before you join a video call, is to find a kind of quiet space that you can join from. So it would help you with your focus of being in a quiet place away from everywhere else, everyone else, away from distractions, away from noises. There might be multiple people working in one home at the moment, maybe not as much now as like schools and things have gone back in person, and not everybody is working from home anymore, but so it might be a bit easier to find your own space, but just finding somewhere that's kind of free from as many distractions and disruptions as possible. And yeah, it can help you focus and just less disruptions to the call if you've got noise and people behind you. So that would be the first step, I would say.
That's great. And what about the next things? So charge your devices and etc. What would you do about that?
Yeah, so this one, it just takes a bit of forethought and just saying, okay, before the meeting, if you're on a portable device anyway, to charge it up fully or as fully as possible before the meeting. So if you know you're going to be on a meeting and later this afternoon or something like that, just charging beforehand so you don't have to worry about the battery, because there's nothing worse than going in a call and then you've not been in the meeting very long and then it's saying, oh, 5% battery, and you've got to run around because you don't know where your charger is, and it's just you're missing part of the meeting or you're disrupting the meeting. So just thinking about it beforehand, and if you don't have time to charge it beforehand, at least having your charger next to you or nearby where you know where it is, you can plug it in as soon as you need to, or even leaving it on charge during the meeting so you don't even have to think about that. That's just something to consider as well before the meeting.
No, that's great. And what about testing your setup then?
Yeah, so again, this is just something to think about beforehand, just a couple of minutes before. None of these steps, take a great amount of effort or thought, but just testing beforehand that everything is set up correctly and you're not going to have any issues, or issues that can be helped anyway in the meeting. So for example, checking that your internet is up and running fine, so maybe doing a speed test or a little Google search, something like that, to check that you're up and connected to the internet, rather than waiting until you go to join the meeting and then it doesn't work because you're not connected, and then you're holding everyone up or you're missing parts of the meeting yourself. So just checking that beforehand, and same as checking that your camera and your microphone, we can talk about this more later, but the camera and the microphone are on if they need to be on, or off if they need to be off. So if you've been instructed, if it's a big company-wide meeting and they say no cameras, no mics, and then you join and you've left your camera and mic on, you're the only one, you just don't want to be dealing with that. So checking beforehand that everything's set up as it should be, but we can touch on that more later.
No, that's great. And what about adjusting, say, your microphone, for example? What would you do about that?
Yep, so with your microphone, you really just want to make sure you sound as clear and natural as possible. So again, a way to test this out would be to maybe get a colleague, friend, family member, someone to do a bit of a test call with you sometime before the meeting to check your volume levels and your microphone levels. So you don't want to be too quiet or too loud. So if you call them and then you can speak, and then speak at the natural, comfortable volume that you would be speaking at in the meeting. There's no point speaking very loudly, adjusting your microphone levels to that volume, and then you're kind of straining your voice throughout the meeting. You just don't want that. So if you speak comfortably, and then you can adjust the levels in your kind of settings on your computer or within Teams, and it can adjust the sensitivity like appropriately, and then it's all set up. And once you've done that once, you know, that should be fine and set up. And then it might be a good idea as well to use a headset. Some people like using a headset because the microphone is, you know, next to your mouth, and will minimize kind of background noise and probably has a clearer sound, a higher quality sound. So that's just what to consider about your microphone in the meeting.
No, that's great. And what about like being aware of anything? Is there anything you need to be aware of?
Yeah, so just being aware of what other people in the meeting can hear. So pretty self-explanatory. You just don't want a lot of disruptive noise around you. So sometimes this can't be helped, and people are fairly understanding, you know, if suddenly a dog starts barking, or someone walks in to ask you something, you know, that these things happen when you are working from home. But trying to just keep this to a minimum where possible. So for example, if you're in a meeting and you're typing up the minutes, and you're not saying much to contribute to the meeting, then perhaps just consider to mute yourself while you're typing, so then people aren't having to compete, you know, to talk louder above the typing sounds, things like that. Obviously it only takes a second to unmute yourself if you did want to say something, but it's just considering the noises that it will be making to other people. Or same as if, you know, if you're working from home and the door goes or something and you've got to answer for a parcel, for example, just saying, I'm just going to step away for a second and then just mute for a minute, just to minimize these sounds, because, you know, everyone can hear what's going on, so it just minimizes that disruption to the group and to the meeting.
No, that's great. And what about lighting? Because obviously that's a key area when you're obviously working from home or a remote location. What do you do about lighting?
Yeah, so lighting, I think, is one that not often people don't often consider or think about sometimes, but it's really important to make sure you're well lit and people can see you as clearly as possible. So whether it's natural light from a window or having to find a lamp or a light, ring light, something like that. I mean, as we're approaching summer, the natural light is kind of staying all day, or like a lot longer than it would be in, say, winter, where for the second half of the working day you might start to lose natural light and have to use a light or a lamp. So as we're approaching summer, it's better that we can get natural light if you've got a window in the room that you work in. So the golden rule really is keeping the light on your face, or at least partially on your face, so you're lit. You don't want to be, basically, you don't want to have your back to the window or to the light source, because you'll just be in shadows and it'll be a lot harder to see you. So whether it's using natural light, like I said, or using a lamp or a ring light or something like that, where your webcam is, it will light your face up and it's just a lot better, and it'll help with lip reading for people and just lighting you up, and they can see you properly like they would in person in a meeting. They can see you properly and clearly. So I'd definitely say lighting's an important one.
No, that's great. And what about dress? Is there any sort of things you obviously dress appropriately or anything like that at all?
Yeah, so for an online meeting, for a video conference, it's obviously different to real life, but in a real life meeting you wouldn't turn up in pajamas or a dressing gown or something like that. So you've got to consider that to be the same really for online video calls too. It's just kind of respectful, and it's kind of the etiquette to turn up to meetings, whether it's online or not. But obviously the main difference is they're only really going to see from like the shoulders upwards. So if you did want to wear comfortable clothes, like, you know, below that, then they're not going to know that, are they? Let's be real. But at least from the shoulders, or like waist upwards, whatever, just being respectful and kind of appearing well groomed and smart, and just respectful to the call by dressing appropriately as you would to a real life meeting. And it does help with motivation also, you know, even if you have just rolled out of bed, you know, it can give you a bit more get up and go if you do get dressed into kind of work appropriate clothing, and it looks better and it is just smarter and more respectful for the meeting too.
No, that's great. And what about appearance then on the screen? Is there anything you need to know about that at all?
Yeah, so this one it's only a little point, but just positioning yourself correctly in the frame and centrally in the frame. So you kind of want your eyes to be in the middle of the screen, like you can see with the little diagram there. You want to appear centrally as possible. So you know, you don't want to be like, you can just see like your nose, your eyes and above or something like that, and you can barely see your face. Or same as you don't want your head to be chopped off at the top. You just want to be as in the middle as possible, and it just centralizes you in the frame, looks better, and yeah, they can just see you all clearly. That's just something to consider of lining yourself up in the frame correctly.
No, that's great. Okay, and what about making use of say a test screen? Is that worth doing?
Definitely. I think this is a really useful tool in Teams and probably other video calling services as well. But in Teams, this is what it looks like. It's a preview of what you're going to look like before you join the call. So even though if you go into your calendar or click the join link or whatever, you'll be brought to this and people can't see you at this point. They can only see you when you click that little purple join now button that's in the bottom right corner that you can see there. So this is really useful. It gives you a preview of what you're going to look and sound like and stuff to everyone just before you join the meeting. So this is where you could basically implement all the steps that we've talked about already. So this is where you would kind of line yourself up correctly, like we just said, in the center of the screen as much as possible. This is where you would turn off or on your microphone as instructed for the meeting, for the specific meeting. So if you've left your microphone off and your camera off from a previous meeting and you need it on for this one, this is where you would turn it on. And yeah, so this is where you would just see what you look like and before you join the meeting. So it's very useful to see this before you join and you're not caught or flustered in the meeting. You can sort it out beforehand.
No, that's great. And what about desktops or backdrops? Sorry, I've heard a lot about them. What's the best sort of backdrop to use or background?
Yeah, so these are really, really useful in Teams and again, other services too. But in Teams, there's some really good ones. And I think finding a backdrop for your video call is important. So you don't have to use one if you don't want to use a kind of a green screen background. If you just kind of find a relatively plain background in your house or home or wherever that doesn't have people walking behind or anything particularly distracting behind you, then this is fine to use. And they also have a feature that you can blur your background as well. So if you didn't want to use an actual green screen again, you can just blur your background so you can see you in focus, and then you can't really make out what's behind you. That's also an alternative. But what you've probably seen on, you see people on the news when they're joining from video calls or interviews, and probably in video calls yourself, people use these kind of green screen backgrounds to simulate a real life, either house, bookshelf, whatever. You've probably seen it. So they're really, really useful. And there's lots of different ones to choose from. There's some preset ones in Teams. We'll show you in a minute how to equip them, which just look like houses and things like I just said. Or you've also got kind of more exciting, colourful, fun backdrops as well, which are fun to try. And you can even upload custom backdrops too. So if you wanted to do themed ones, if it's like Halloween, Christmas, something like that, you could add a kind of festive backdrop, something. You can add anything, basically. You can have fun with it. So if you were in a not very serious kind of casual meeting with your colleagues and team members, it might be fun to try out some of the more fun ones. But yeah, it's very useful, the backdrop feature, I think.
That's great. And how do you actually enable them then within Teams?
Yes, so if you want to enable it before you join the call, again, we come back to this preview screen that we talked about before. You can see that circled button that says background filter. So you would click on that. And then as you can see on the right, there's quite a lot to choose from. These are just the ones that are built into Teams. There's that one that says blur on it. That's the one I was talking about. Right, it blurs your background. That one's useful. And then there's lots of preset ones here, which just basically pretty plain, just like a house or a plain wall, whatever. They're really useful. Just anything behind you that would be of a distraction or you don't want shown, then these are really good. And then you can kind of see a snippet at the bottom of the kind of more fun, colourful ones too, and there's more to choose from there as well. So anything you really want, you can choose. And see at the top as well, it says add new. That's where you would add your custom backdrops if you did want anything to choose from. Basically, you can have whatever you want. So that's how you would enable them.
No, that's great. And what about scheduling a meeting? How would you go about that?
Yep, so in Teams, you would go on your calendar and then you would click new meeting at the top corner. And then here is where you would basically set up all the details for the meeting. So the title of the meeting, who you want to invite, and the time, the duration, any sort of additional details that you want to write in the meeting. At the bottom is like a description section. That's where you would do it. And if you want to invite internal people, they should be in your address book already. So you would just click. You just search the name, and they should come up. And then any external participants, you should just use their email address and they should come up as well, and they should get an invite too.
No, that's great. And what about if you want to add others to a call then, if you have other people that you want to include?
Yeah, so when you're in a meeting, if you click show participants, you can see here on this example, it shows who is currently in the meeting that's been invited, who are already attending, and then others that have been invited that aren't actually in the meeting yet. So if you want to invite someone that was invited who isn't yet there, you would click more options and then click ask to join. And then anyone who hasn't been invited that you suddenly decide you want to invite, you would just search either their name again if they're in your address book, or their phone number or email address should work, and that would send an invite to them.
That's great. Okay, so we're going to do just about being an effective meeting host now. So this is just some tips what you can just stick by, or you can just more of a knowledge exercise than anything else. So these are just basic tips and tricks that have been discussed today and can be effective for anyone, whether you've got a hosting or joining a meeting. As a host, you want to take a few extra steps to make sure your meetings are streamlined and professional as possible. If both of them are internal or external participants, you need to make sure that if they're joining, they keep them external in the lobby until they're ready to be accepted into the actual meeting itself. This way, people aren't going to be joining at different times and causing any disruptions potentially. Lucy, do you have any further things about being an effective meeting host at all that you can think of that you want to share?
Yeah, I think similar to what you've just said, Martin, I think it's important to kind of act as if it was a real life meeting, basically have the same sort of etiquette. Like we said similarly before about the dress, you wouldn't turn up to a real life meeting in your pajamas, so why would you do that for an online one? And it's same for being in a meeting host, having a bit of forethought about either coming up with an agenda or things like that. And keeping the external people all waiting in a lobby until everyone's ready, rather than having people coming in dribs and drabs. I think that's really important, because it just shows professionalism and just makes it a more streamlined, enjoyable experience for those joining the meeting.
No, that's great. That's great. Okay, so just to summarise, we're going to have some questions just after we summarise. We've got some questions that have come in, but just to summarise, this is what we've gone through today. So basically, find a quiet and suitable place to call and join from. Make sure your devices are charged. Any technical errors, make sure that you test them beforehand. Make sure that you're aware of the surroundings, your sound around you. Make sure you've got ample light, dress appropriately, position yourself centrally in the center of the screen, and just make sure that your camera, mic and background and positioning before joining, just to ensure that you're going to have no issues at all. So we've just got some questions that have come through. The first one is, do you really need a fast line to do video conferences? Do you want to answer that one, Lucy, or do you want me to do that one?
You could take that one if you want,
Okay,
Martin. What would you think?
That's no problem. So basically, the rule of thumb is when you're doing anything with video, especially on Teams, is you need to make sure that you don't have to have a super duper fast connection, but you need to make sure that you're not streaming anything at the same time. So if you've got a family, for example, or other people that you live with, make sure that when you're doing your video call that you're not actually got other people that are streaming 4K videos or movies at the same time, because that can affect the connectivity with your meeting, and it can cause things like buffering. So we'd probably recommend that if you're going to have a meeting, you just say to the people that you live with, can you limit doing this for the next hour while I have this meeting, and that will prevent any sort of issues that you may have while streaming, obviously your video call itself. Another question that we've got come in, do you need to buy a separate microphone or camera, or will the ones in the laptop, say an Apple laptop, be okay? Do you want to answer that one, Lucy?
Yeah, I can answer that one. I think it just basically depends on your own preference. I think most devices, if they come with a built-in camera and microphone, should be okay, unless you really feel like, unless you've been told by other people that you really aren't clear, or you don't sound clear, or you don't appear clear, you might want to invest in an additional webcam or a headset microphone, because I think a lot of people do have headsets, for example, they're fairly inexpensive. There's Bluetooth ones, there's all sorts out there, and I think if you wanted to, you can go out and invest in those sort of things. But most that come with them, I've never, like an Apple laptop, for example, I've never had a problem with the ones that I use. It's just personal preference, or if you've been told, like I said, you don't sound or appear clear, then you might want to invest in some. But you can get any sort of attachment, like a webcam or a microphone, that they don't have to be expensive to be good. And I guess it's just how clear you want to appear. You can spend more to appear top line, but most of the time built-in will be fine, I think.
No, that's great. I've just got a couple more as well. So should you mute yourself if coughing, or will people think that you're not paying attention? Do you want to answer that one as well at all?
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah.
I think it's up to you. If you were coughing and you know people were in the middle of talking and you weren't contributing, you know, you can mute a second if you know that you're going to be making a noise like that to avoid disrupting those. I don't think anyone would you know, take offense to that. I think it's fine. If it was a more extended period of time that you needed to step away for, then maybe just prefacing it by saying, like I said before, if you need to answer the door or something's come up that you need to just go for 5 minutes, just rather than just muting and not saying anything, and people might think you're ignoring you if you then get a question directed to you or something like that. But if you just say, you know, I'm sorry, I need to just step away for a moment, or I'll be 5 minutes, something's just come up, and then you go on mute, then people won't think you're just being ignorant or ignoring them or something like that. So yeah, any sort of disruptive noise, if it's just going to be like a second, like you're just coughing or sneezing or something, you know, no one will probably even notice that you've gone on mute for, you know, a matter of seconds. But if you do need to step away for a minute or two, it's probably best to just announce that, and then people know why you're not responding.
No, that's great. I've got one more for you as well. Is it best to have a camera looking on your desk, on a desk, or looking eye level? So do you think the camera should be looking at eye level, or should it be just looking at the general desk? Basically, that's what someone's asked.
Yeah, I think it's important to get it kind of eye level. Like if we talked about that slide earlier, to line your eyes up in the middle of the screen, I think is the best way to get it to look. You don't want it to be too far down, and you don't want your head chopped off or anything like that. So I think if you can attach, if you've got an additional, like a external webcam, attaching that at the top of a monitor or at the top of on top of something to be at eye level, I think looks better than having it kind of at the desk level looking up at you. I think if you can do that and you've got the ability to do that, then I think that would be good, because it's similar to if you've got a laptop and you see where the built-in webcam is, that is at the top. So that's where I think, well, in most laptops anyway, is where it appears. So I think that's the best place to have it if you can mount a webcam or have a camera at the top. So then you'll be looking kind of straight at it, eye level, and I think it's just a better angle overall to have it.
No, that's great. I've got one more question, but I'm going to answer this one.
Okay.
So someone's just asked, does people streaming Netflix in the back make a difference? Should I ask them to stop? Now, this is really dependent on what they're streaming, because obviously if they're streaming 4K, then I would say yes, because that uses a lot more bandwidth. But if they were streaming standard definition, that shouldn't make a huge difference, or even HD. It all depends really on what internet connection that you have and what your actual speed is. Generally, myself, if I was in a video meeting, I'd tell them not to stream anything. That's my own personal view, or my own opinion. But if you've got kids and they're watching something just in standard definition, then that shouldn't really be an issue, as long as your internet connection is fast enough. But anything streaming like 4K or higher, then I'd recommend not doing that, because that will cause you issues with buffering, and you will have issues if your connection isn't fast enough. So that's all the questions that we've got for today. So the next bit is just basically just how SMS fits in. So basically, we've been here since 2006. We are basically a sort of powerhouse for Microsoft, as I previously mentioned earlier. We only really sell Microsoft products. We do actually have other add-on products that sort of complement 365 as well. We are fully based in the UK. Both sales and our help desk are UK based. And we actually work ourselves in remote locations. At the moment, I'm based at home at the moment, so we're able to assist you with that. And also, if you ever need to contact us, we can be contacted on sales and support. The numbers are on screen at the moment, and we are here to help you with any issues, or if you're a new customer looking to get 365 or any other 365 service, please do give our sales line a call, or our support line a call if you need anything to be answered, if you have any questions. So what I'd like to do now is thank everyone for watching today, and I'd like to thank Lucy for presenting this webinar. We are doing webinars every fortnight around 2 o'clock at the same time. So stay tuned for future webinar series that we're going to be doing over the next coming months. And I say once again, if you need any help or assistance, please give us a call. We are here to help, and thank you very much for viewing.
Thank you.